Welcome to another episode of the Not Almost There podcast. This is a very special day and episode because I have my friends with me, Bruce and Jon, and my wife, Heather. And this is your first time on a podcast, right?
First time, absolutely.
First time.
I've been trying to get you on a podcast when we conquered Half Dome, which we'll get into in a little bit, but we never ended up doing it. So maybe we could touch on that today. So the reason why we're all here is we just accomplished something that was a pretty big feat, and that was the Spartan races in Lake Tahoe. And I've been talking about this on the podcast for a while and really want to get into the mindset that it took to compete in this race. I want to get into the training that led up to it and just kind of our individual stories, because we each have a different story about what happened at the race, which I think is pretty unique. And not for a spoiler alert, but Jon here actually placed first for his age group. So congrats, Jon, again on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I really want to get into that because I just saw in your eyes that there was no way you weren't going to do that. So it was crazy and awesome to see it happen. So I think we're going to start by defining what it is that we did for the audience here. So there is two components to this. There is the Beast, which Heather, you did with a few friends. And then there was the Ultra race, which Bruce, myself, Jon, we had Micah there, Jacob, Todd, Ryan, and Darren, of course, Darren. and we all ended up doing kind of a different style. Some of us ended up finishing together, some didn't. I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, just wanted to start the conversation off with what it is that we even did. So Jon, you want to touch on what the Ultra was?
Sure. So the Ultra was a 50K race with about 60 or so obstacles, about 9,000 feet of gain. And we had to do the Beast course plus an additional 5-mile loop, which was miserable. Big sandbag carry, not enjoyable. You missed out on that, Heather.
I did miss out on that. I'm not happy that I did.
And then we hit a transition zone, and then we had to do the whole thing over again, just minus the Ultra loop. So all told, we ended up with about 31 miles total, again, with about 60 obstacles. So yeah, very fun. Very enjoyable.
The elevation started at around 6,000, right?
6,000, yeah.
And I think we climbed up to 9,000 and then back down and up again. And there was a few different climbs. The second climb was the worst.
Second climb was absolutely the worst. 100%.
Yeah, that was terrible.
So Heather, what was your race? How was it different?
So I did the Beast, which, like Jon said, was about half of what the Ultra is. So it was a little bit over 13 miles with 30 obstacles. So, but same terrain, same course set that the Ultra was. So it was tough. So I know we'll get into more of the story behind it, but yeah, it was definitely a big challenge for me and something that was way out of my comfort zone and out of my box.
Yeah, well, let's get into that right now. Like, how do we even get into this? Because on the podcast, I say often that it's really important to train towards a goal. What we found, at least, and I, again, spoke about this quite a bit, that Heather and I work out together every morning. But when you just wake up to work out without a purpose, it kind of gets dull and boring, I'll be honest with you. And we found that setting something on the calendar and training for it has more meaning, and it makes us more consistent, and it kind of gives us the why and purpose. But it was kind of funny how we got wrapped up into this. And for the first Spartan race period to do what we did was pretty, I don't want to say extraordinary because there's other people that do it, but we definitely chose like a hard path. So how did we even get wrapped up into this?
Well, I think that's funny because you always tend to think that it was me that definitely signed us up. And really how it happened is our friend Christy and Ryan, they were visiting with us in Tahoe, like in the wintertime, and we were discussing all these kind of fun activities and stuff that, kind of challenge you and put you outside of your box. And like a month or so later, Christy and Ryan actually signed up for the race. And I was sitting there thinking, it was like after a workout in the morning, I'm like, if I don't sign up now and give myself a challenge, I will never sign up. Because again, it was completely out of my comfort zone. So I went to my phone and I signed up for the Beast. And it was kind of scary because I've never done anything more than a 5K. So just kind of thinking that it was a half marathon distance, something that I've not even come close to in my whole entire life. And now I'm, in my early 40s. So it was like, wow, I can't believe I'm taking this leap. So I went to my husband, Joe, here, and I said, I just signed up for the Beast in Spartan, and you better sign up for the Ultra because I know you've done a marathon already.
So you did get me into this.
So I was like, if I'm challenging myself to this extent, you've got to do the same. So he kind of him and hawed a little bit, but he ended up actually going and signing up, and then you can kind of take over from there and tell kind of what was going through your mind.
Yeah.
When was that? What do you remember?
I'm trying to-
It was early, either late 2020 or early 21, I believe. It was like January.
Yeah.
I remember it was a
If
really
memory
long
serves
time.
It was a long time ago. And then we saw this podcast by Spartan, which Cal Fussman was featured on, and he was on my podcast like right after that. And that was a very like endearing story from Cal. And that really, we looked at that honestly and we're like, if Cal could do this, we can do it. And I think that is when people are listening to this, just say yes to something, right? I mean, we didn't know what we were getting into. Luckily, we had Jon, who had done a few of these before, and we knew he could train us for this. But even if we didn't have Jon, there's a lot of different training programs for whatever you want to accomplish. And again, like we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what it was. We knew there was an obstacle component and an endurance component. And for me, the scariest thing was running 31 miles in the mountains. Like it wasn't necessarily the obstacles. I felt like I can learn those, but it's when you talk about running uphill, that was a bit daunting. So I want to shift topics a little bit and get into the story of kind of what happened, because something interesting happened to Bruce over here. But I want to get into kind of the day, like how you started the race, how you were feeling about things, and really kind of the first half of it.
So we got to Tahoe a couple days early just to kind of acclimate to the environment changes and whatnot. And for me, a lot of my training was not mountainous. I mean, we're in Illinois here, so I mean the most I had was at a ski hill. So that right there was kind of what I was most worried about. Like I was just like, man, I'm not really sure how we're going to kind of handle that. But I would also say too, where you were kind of you thought the running would be really hard for you, when the obstacles, like I was the exact opposite, like where the running just kind of comes natural to me and I could handle it. But it was the obstacles where I was like, oh my God, like I'm not really sure, how I'm going to kind of get over all these things. And, it did end up going, so as part of my training, I did a lot of HIIT training. I did a lot of running. I tried to stay on a really good diet, but it was kind of hard to kind of fluctuate, because one of the things I told my family early on is that this was not going to get in the way of any vacations or anything else like that. I was going to try to kind of just do all the things and just keep things kind of as normal as possible. But I would say that on the day of the race, I was feeling really great. Like I was hydrated because we were overhydrating. We were kind of just taking it easy. A lot of the tapering was just kind of done. So, I mean, energy levels were high. Everything was, just in a great spot. And so we started the race and it was dark, right? I mean, so we had to have our headlamps. That was the mandatory thing that had to be in your bag. And, it was so funny.
It was 6:30 a.m.
Yeah.
We started.
Yeah, 6:30, that's right. And so it was dark when we got there, and I think it was 40 degrees, I think, in the start too. So it was a little cold, which was great, but energy is high, and we start the race, and it's starting to kind of lighten up almost immediately. Like as soon as we started the race, it was like starting to get light out, and felt really great. And we were all together as a group, and as you said, Micah. So he was part of our group, and he just kind of took off. Like he was running his own race, and he looked great, and so he was kind of doing his thing. But you, me, Darren, Jacob, and we all worked together. And Todd, right? And so we were all together through the race, and I thought that was great because we had this support system that we had the entire time. Like even though we were all training individually, we all were connected, via a group text, and it was just really great to kind of keep things just kind of rolling, and asking questions from time to time. Jon, you were great with the Zoom meetings too, to kind of just tell us what we needed inside of our buckets and whatnot. So it was, but yeah. So again, I felt really great. I had my bag packed, everything was great. The first loop of the Beast, we started up a mountain, right? And just as a side note, I think you should share that map that you have in the notes somehow.
Yeah,
because
there's something called Fat Maps, and they connect to Garmin, probably Apple too. And basically, when you're done with your run or hike, it'll sync to Fat Map, and then it'll email you like this interactive map with topography. It's super cool. So I will share that because you can kind of see the adventure that we had.
When you do see that, it's because everything we're talking about, we're saying, oh, we're going up a mountain, and we're going down a mountain, and we're going around a mountain, and we're going up a mountain, and but when you actually see it, and you're like, oh my God, this is insane.
And it's cool to picture like what you were doing as you were going, like while you're watching the interactive map. You can like picture like, oh yeah, that was what the sandbag carry was.
The YouTube videos are posted for the Beast races, so that was obviously a little bit lighter than what we did on the Ultra, but that's exactly what you did, Heather. So going back, so you were like doing really well, and you got through more than half of it, and then at mile 18 we hit the transition area. And so how it works is you do your first loop, then you do this ultra loop just for the ultra runners, and then you go to this transition area where you can grab lunch, change your shoes, whatever, and then you have a time limit to get out of there. So there's a cutoff time, and we had plenty of time. We had our cutoff time was an hour and a half later. We weren't going to take all that time. You could take as little time as you want or as much time up until that cutoff time. So we're feeling decent in there. You were feeling good in the transition area?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was feeling exhausted. I think that's probably the best way to think about it, like when you look back. But I didn't feel right. I was trying to eat like a sandwich or something, and I couldn't get anything down. It was just, it was kind of strange. And then, the group started, right? So it was like, okay, it's time to go, and we're going to kind of do the next lap. And this is where I'm going to need your guys' help, because for me, this is a bit fuzzy, because we started on the trek to just past mile 18. We're about to get to our first obstacle the second time. And I fell. And I fell down and then got back up and then fell down again. And I remember there was a runner behind us that was like, oh my God, And I think that's when you guys came back to get me. And then you're going to have to fill in the blanks here, because this is very sketchy for me, because I actually got passed out from heat exhaustion, and I blacked out. So there's a few minutes that I don't recall, but I know you were there and you helped me.
Yeah, definitely. So what happened was we just got to the transition area. You were lagging a little bit behind, and throughout this journey, you're going to have people that are a little bit behind, a little ahead, and you kind of ebb and flow, right? Like as a group, some people are stronger on the hike, so those people are going to be ahead. Some are better on the decline, some are better at the obstacles. So when you're doing it with a group, like that's natural. Mm-hmm. So you were behind, but you started getting like pretty far behind in the first mile. So I yelled, and I'm like, Bruce, come on, man, pick it up. Like, is everything all right? And you're like, yeah, I'll be right there. And you acted like nothing was wrong. And then I turned back about 50 feet after I said that, and you were just like almost stopped. So I yelled to, at this point, Todd and Jacob were a little bit ahead of us. I yelled to them. I said, guys, hold up a second. So I went back and I said, Bruce, are you all right? And you kind of looked at me and you're like, yeah, I just don't feel right. But I want to keep going. Like your mindset was like, I'm not going to stop this race no matter what. So then I was like, dude, why don't you sit down for a second? Because you look just completely out of it. You were flushed. And you're like, no, I'm fine. I'm like, just sit. You sat down, and within 2 seconds of you sitting down, your head flies backwards. Your eyes roll in the back of your head, and there's this rock behind you. And for whatever reason, this is luck on my end, I reach out just as your head's about to hit this rock, and I stop it. And you're like, what's going on? What just happened? And I said, dude, you just passed out. And at that point, you were like, I'm not feeling right. And I'm like, get medics. So then Todd and Jacob ran back up, went to the water station. They called for medics. And then you're like, I think I'm okay. I'm just going to keep going. Like, you did not want to stop. And then the medics started to come in, and you kind of, I think then at that point you were feeling like, hey, I'm not going to finish this thing. And you were like, I'm fine, I'm going to get up. And you started to get up, and you're like, I'm going to throw up. So it was like this, like your mind was so there, but your body wasn't, right?
Yeah.
So then the medics come up, and you're talking to them, and it was pretty emotional for you because you were like, I want to do this. I've trained a lot for it. But again, like, your body just gave out.
Yeah, now it's, so to finish that part of the story, I ended up getting back to the medical tent, and, because the train was so rocky and crazy, they had to actually like take me 3 different ways. They're like, nope, we can't go this way. Nope, we can't go this way. So they had to try to figure out how to get me to the medical tent. And as soon as I got to the medical tent, they asked me what happened. They were asking me what year it was, and I was kind of fumbling a little bit. I don't said 2001. I don't know why I said that. Like, I know what year it is, but for some reason I said 2001. She's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "No, it's not."
I'm really bad at years.
So I'm like, "No, I got it right the second time." But and then they come over, and they come with scissors, and they're about to cut my tracker off. I'm like, "No, don't do that. Don't do that." They're like, "You're not finishing this race." And as soon as she did, I was like, ball of tears. I was like, "No." And it was, emotional. Absolutely. And I don't, like you said, I think my mind was there and my body wasn't. And some of these, like, I think I was in some ways, like, kind of looking back, I feel like I was like a tourist in this space, in the Spartan space. You could always train harder. You could always do different things, but, for me, when I do it again, it will be, the training intensity will be different. There'll be a lot of things that I know now that I can do very different, so that I don't have any, issues with like heat or, whatever else comes back. But I know my mind was there. I just need to really kind of work on, just the physical strength to do it.
Well, I was telling you, so rewind back, was it 2 years ago when we did Montauk? We were going to do Montauk.
Yeah, I believe it was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, so we signed up
3.
for the sprint triathlon, and I'm the one who organized it, and it was Darren, you, and who else was it? Oh, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris. So we were all there getting ready for this sprint triathlon, and a week before that, I had a colonoscopy, and I had a really bad, like, adverse side effect to that, and ended up bleeding a lot, and lost a lot of my hemoglobin, and I couldn't compete in it. And it was horrible because not only was I signed up for the race, but I was leading like all of us to go to this race, and I couldn't even compete. You did 18 miles.
Yeah.
So, like I was telling you, man, like, don't be hard on yourself. You did 18 miles of the toughest course. And to put this in perspective, 3,300 people signed up for the Spartan weekend. Only 300 of those signed up for the Ultra race, which is one of the hardest races and the hardest courses. Out of those 300, only 140 finished.
Right.
So it's not like you were in bad company. You did more than the beast for your first Spartan, and I think you did a phenomenal job. And you could tell that it wasn't like you literally just could not go anymore.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
So I'm going to shift to Heather, your experience with this, because you obviously trained a lot for this. You were incredibly strong in your hiking. What is something that surprised you the most about it?
I think how much I actually enjoyed being out on the course with other people and all the camaraderie that the Spartan kind of races provide. Because all I saw was very positive energy and everyone kind of promoting everyone to do better and, hey, you're doing great. And it was all those signs of encouragement along the way that kind of really surprised me, and that made the experience so much more enjoyable and actually made it an experience. versus just like a workout or something that you're just doing for yourself. You kind of felt like a sense of community.
So something you told me that I thought was really profound and people can take with them as far as their mental toolbox is when you had to carry, when you had to carry the sandbags, and at the very end of it. So this is after another sandbag carry and a bucket carry, I believe.
I want to say it was probably at around like mile 10 or 11. I don't know if you guys remember when that.
Yeah, it was the last mile.
So that was the second sandbag carry, not the first, second.
And there was a bucket carry too.
Yes, and there was a bucket carry.
Okay, so what got you through that?
So it was kind of an uphill climb with the sandbag. And along the way, as I was going uphill, there was all these people sitting on their sandbags along the trail going up. And I said to myself, I cannot set this down because I will not be able to pick it back up. So I've got to keep going. And so I kind of made it all the way up, and I was like, oh no, I've got to go down now. So I had to kind of really get into like a meditative state. And all I could think about is like other people's struggles. And like, if other people can do this, if like little kids in other worlds can carry like buckets of water just to get to their homes and stuff, I can do this. I can just keep going. It's not that far.
Right.
So I think, again, I had to kind of get into a meditative state, and that kind of really helped me, kind of propel me to finish that part of the sandbag.
I love that story because that's something everyone could put in their mental toolbox, the ability to like empathize or feel like someone else that, I mean, we're doing a race that we signed up for. People are have to get water and food and carry 60-pound bags of rice and all kinds of stuff just to survive. Yep. And we're sitting there doing it for our luxury. And to put that in perspective, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing about the race for you?
Oh, I think it was the first sandbag, the first bucket carry. Because I felt like it was like a lot heavier than what I trained with, even though Jon told me what we were training with was heavier. So that was really hard. And I kind of did this bear hug, and I switched to my shoulders. And, I've got lower back kind of issues, so my back hurt. But I just kept, like I said, I just kept going. And I was like, it was one of the first obstacles. So I'm like, I've just got to do this and kind of pull from my strengths. So I thought that was the hardest. There's obviously some obstacles in there that were more difficult, but I think if I were to go back again and do this race again, there's always an opportunity to train and kind of learn those obstacles, but it's like that perseverance to get through those things that you just have to do. And like the bucket and the sandbag carries are things that Spartan just kind of puts on the course that says you have to do this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you have like no
mental
choice. Even if like some of the other obstacles you could fail and keep going on, but this you had to do. So that's why I think it was probably the toughest, because I knew I had to finish it.
Yeah. The only way out is through. That's what I kept thinking.
Very true.
What surprised me though about it is how many people just were bypassing obstacles or not finishing them or not doing the burpees and I guess
But I think to their defense, I think it's like these opportunities, again, that's where I go like with the sense of community, right? Like it's not necessarily about just you individually and what you can accomplish, but it's everyone's individual race, because everyone comes at it from a different viewpoint. So I think the fact that they're out there doing something, I think is great.
My point is saying that wasn't to degrade someone doing it. My point of saying that is very accessible to people. So I was surprised to see that, but it actually wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because that just means if you're thinking about something like this and you think you're going to be forced into doing a penalty burpees or a penalty loop, it is your race, and it's not. Don't be overwhelmed by that, because we didn't know going into it. Like that again surprised me, because I thought it was going to be pretty regimented, where you're going to have someone looking over you saying, "Oh, you have to do 30 burpees." And what I mean by that, just to explain it, if you fail an obstacle, you're supposed to do 30 burpees. In this race, I think each race is a little bit different. But there's hardly anyone that I see in the open division, which is different, because I want to get into Jon's division, where at least the open, there was no regulation of that. So you had all types of people doing all types of things, which is a really good thing, because you could sign up for an open ultra as long as you train for it and just persevere through it, and you don't have to worry about that stuff. So I want to get into Jon now, because again, Jon won his age group, and leading up to the race, I spent a few days with Jon, and I could just tell in his eye that you weren't. There was no second place for you in this race. Like you were in it to win it, and you had this mindset and this preparation that I haven't seen from you, and I haven't seen from like others. I haven't done a race with you either, but it was clear that like you meant business. And I thought it was awesome, man, to bring that home for the Non-Almost There team as well, and to be a part of it with you. What for you was it about this race that you knew you were going to place in it?
I think just having the experience of having done a lot of these, and that always being a goal of wanting to get to that podium, because I've come close a few times. I've gotten a few 4th and 5th place finishes, but I definitely felt coming into this one, I knew my hill training and hill legs were in pretty good shape. I knew I could complete pretty much all the obstacles for the most part. And like I had that state of mind, like I'm getting this, like nothing's gonna keep me down. And I've told Bruce this story, and I think I told the whole group, but so when I came into the transition area, I had something in my shoe, like pretty much from mile 2, and it was pretty much right on my heel. So I got to the bucket, and I bent down to take off my shoe, and my calf just locked up, and it was like concrete. And I pretty much fell on the ground trying everything I could to unlock this calf, and I couldn't get it. And then all of a sudden, the right one locked up. So had anyone seen me at that point, you would have thought, there's no way this guy's getting up and continuing. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know what? You've been through this before. You've trained for this. Get back in that positive mind state, because I was like, I don't think I can get up and finish. So I was like, get back in that positive mind state, get your stuff out of the bucket, and get back up that hill. And that's pretty much what I did. I didn't take the shoe off, just grabbed my extra pack out of the bucket and started back up the hill. And it's about a 4-mile hike or incline going up that first climb. I walked the whole thing trying to loosen up the calf, and eventually it did. By probably about mile 3 or so, it loosened up, and then I was able to continue on, at least at the pace I wanted to go. And from there, it just persevered through it. And just like Heather was saying, like there's so much positivity, especially on the second lap, because that's when all the beast runners start. And what separates the ultras from the beast, we have this purple penny on. So anytime you see someone with a purple penny, everybody's like, yeah, ultra, you're kicking ass, like keep going. And like that, just even those little words of encouragement, like it's amazing what those will do to push you through an obstacle, or to keep you climbing up a hill, or keep you running down a hill. Like it's just, and I saw Heather at probably around mile 10 or 11 for her, right at the end of probably the worst hike or the worst climb on the whole course.
Yeah, 30% incline.
Yeah, it was miserable. And I didn't even see Heather, first of all. I was behind her, and I noticed she was doing a technique called the wedding step, right?
Yeah.
and I saw this person in front of me doing it, and I'm like, that must be the wedding step Heather was talking about. Yeah. And I passed her, and then all of a sudden, I believe Christy said, Jon. And I was like, oh, look who it is. It's you guys. And just seeing you guys and your smiles, and just it gave me that little extra burst of confidence. And you also had some salt tabs for me.
Yes.
For some reason, I had salt tabs in my pack, but I couldn't locate them. I tucked them underneath my hydration flask for some reason, probably in a state of hysteria getting out of the transition area. But those extra salt tabs, and just seeing you guys and having that positivity radiating from you, it was awesome, and it got me through.
Yeah, I loved the people that patted you on the back and was like, "Go Ultra, go Ultra." It was just this kind of spark of motivation when you needed it.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
So part of it, so it's bittersweet for me, right? Because I didn't get to finish, but the great news is that I got to see Jon finish, and And I caught because Jon was wearing some pretty flashy sunglasses. They
Bright
were
yellow.
Bright yellow. So, but I saw you, a glimpse of you, because at the very end, the hoist at the end, and I was like, oh, there's Jon or whatever, you know. So I came up to the finish line, but I couldn't, like, you didn't show up for like 4 minutes. Like, why is that?
Oh,
You gotta tell everybody.
so the very end of the race was pretty much a gauntlet of obstacles, as we're all aware of. So there was a tire flip, it was called the, why can't I think of the name? The Olympus. You're basically traversing across a slick wooden panel of poles and chains and
It's
rock
nearly
climbing
a vertical
pieces.
wall. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then a rope climb. So the only obstacle I failed on the first time around was the tire flip. So I knew right there I wasn't going to even attempt it because at that point, pretty much spent. So I did the 30 burpees. The difference between age group and ultra and open is I have to take my headband off. I give it to the attendant, and they basically count out my burpees to make sure I'm doing all 30. So I did the 30 burpees for the tire flip. Get to Olympus. I get about 3/4 of the way through. Finger slips, fall off. Another 30 burpees. I get to the rope climb. This guy comes over and he says, "Hey, Ultra, what age group you in?" I'm like, 35, 39. He's like, "You got a podium to get to." And I had that spark of energy that you get from somebody saying, "All right, finish this thing out." So I start up the rope climb, get one pull away, and I have nothing left. My arms are cashed. I can't even lift one more to smack the bell. And so I come back down, and he's like, "Get up and do it again." And I was like, it's not worth it. I can't. I literally have nothing left in my arms. So I go and do another 30 burpees. So that's 90 burpees now in the span of probably about a half hour. And so I'm exhausted at the finish here. And I get to the Hercules hoist, able to do that one. That's a little more pull strength. So I was able to knock that one out and finish through it. And as soon as I cross the finish line, they say, "Okay, your medal's a quarter mile that way. You have to go to the go to the where you guys signed up." But seeing Bruce, like, that was awesome. It was like such a shock and like a wonderful experience at the same time, because Bruce was like, "Oh my God," and he was just so excited, happy, and we hugged, and it was just awesome. But very very exciting finish for sure.
Yeah, for me, there was a few takeaways. One, I want to start actually before the race, because I woke up that morning, I had everything kind of set out. I had so much anticipation. I don't know if it was anxiety or anticipation. It was just this overwhelming feeling that I was forgetting things. My mind wasn't in the right place. I think part of it was I had to get you there. I had to get our team there. I had to drive there. I had a bunch of people at our home. And I remember being in the car and losing my sense of where I was even going, even though I've been to this place 100 times. And in the last year, I've never even took out Google Maps to find it. And at this time, I'm like, just forgot to even where to turn. I made a wrong turn. I was like just in this weird space. And I was looking at my heart rate, and my heart rate was like, just driving the car like in the 120s, like that's how much anticipation I had for this. So then we were driving there, and I make a couple of wrong turns. Luckily, I get us there in time, and we start off the race. I'm skipping forward. I'm skipping through a bunch of parts, but we start this race, and my heart rate will not calm down. It's like 155 when we're starting. Like when we're starting to climb. And I'm like, I've trained a ton for this, and I don't know what's going on here, because I've ran a whole marathon and my heart rate did not exceed 150, right? So I'm like, this does not feel good. And I start running the race, or we start doing a power hike, because the group we were with, at least, and most of the ultra people did not run uphill. They just did a power hike uphill. The competitors like yourself definitely did from time to time, but it was just this crazy thing that I could not control it. And then I was talking to Darren and Jacob, and their heart rates were like 110 or like 105, like super low. So I was like, man, this is not looking good. But what happened was I just kept going through it. And as you guys know, the audience doesn't know, but at mile 11, well, I should say I'm feeling great other than that. My legs aren't fatigued. The obstacles, I was crushing them because I practiced a ton. I was feeling awesome. Mile 11 happens, and I'm running downhill as fast with our group because you can make up a lot of time when you go downhill. But downhill at Squaw Valley and Lake Tahoe is not like downhill on a hill or a street. There is loose rock everywhere. There's mulch. There's just a bunch of debris. And I'm just running down this hill as fast as I can. And then my ankle rolls once. And then just a half mile later, I hear 2 pops, and it rolled twice. Like I actually felt pops for the first time ever. And I was like, man, this is bad. So I started to feel the swelling happen. And I look at my heart rate, and my heart rate is actually going down. It's doing the opposite of what I thought it would do. And I was like, wow, like, why is this going down, not up? I thought I would have more anticipation, more anxiety from this. And the only thing I thought of is the only way out is through. I was like, there's no way that I'm going to not do this if I'm moving forward. Like, Bruce passed out. He could not physically move forward. Even if I was taking baby steps and I was making the cutoff time, I was moving forward. So I did the remainder, the 20 more miles with what turns out to be an emulsion fracture in my foot.
Oh, wow.
And I can tell you that the pain of not finishing is greater than the pain that I felt, like, mentally. Like, that's what I reconciled with myself. I'm like, there's no way that I'm gonna go back and feel good about myself, especially after what happened in that sprint where I had a DNF, or not even DNF. I didn't even start it. And it was just this, like, I had to, like, take out this mental toolbox to say, like, I'm gonna get through this, and I'm gonna try these obstacles, because there's no way that I'm gonna represent myself or not almost there or all our training and not finish this thing. And I'm so glad because this is temporary.
That's what I'm dealing with right now. Like, I had no doubt I was going to finish that race, and for me to just not finish it, and I was so proud of everybody. I truly think that the group that I was with, like, this is going to sound kind of cheesy to people who don't get it, but, like, they're truly that Spartan mindset. Like, they live it. And I said earlier that I felt like kind of a tourist because one thing, not only do I have kind of I don't have the medal, but I have the drive and the willingness. Like, I'm going to get it. It's just a matter of time. It's just, but what I was able to see was, I saw elites. I saw, like, all these different kind of types of people finishing these things. I saw, like, the kind of weekend warrior, the guys, people, husband and wives holding hands. Like, while they're going through this thing, and just saw so many, different types of finishers. And I was like, man, this community is so vast. It's not only just about, like, these elite people just, kind of trying to kind of show off and whatnot. This is a true lifestyle for many people, but it's something that you can drive towards. It's like I was saying earlier, I can run, but I can't, do these obstacles very well. And, so those were challenges to me, and I just, and I loved it. And now it's like, I don't want to sign up for just a regular race. Like, it's gotta have an obstacle or something in between.
Well,
it does break it up a bit.
Yeah. That's what I loved about it, because in our group, like Jacob, Darren, you guys are all runners. John's a runner. I'm not a runner. I run, but I'm definitely not fast. And what I thought this did well is it evened it out, because even if you're a runner, going up a mountain is not the same as running.
Right.
Like, when you're power hiking up that mountain, it's a different skill set. So it levels the playing field in such a cool way, and it makes it fun yet challenging. Like, these aren't, like, I did an obstacle race 10 years ago, and it was to, like, jump over this little fire thing and, like, crawl under the mud.
And that's kind of what I thought I was getting into, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but
no, you signed up for the national championship beast course.
Yeah. So this was far more challenging, but that's what I love. So if you're we don't represent Spartan by any means, but if you are one of those people that just like don't love just running, this is a great alternative. And you don't have to feel like there's no way that you could compete or be at the level as other people, because a lot of it is power hiking. A lot of it is pushing through. A lot of it's grip strength, learning obstacles. I mean, there's a huge endurance component. You have to be ready for that. But yeah, I mean, I would, and John, like, I looked at the overall rankings. You finished, I think, 7th. Was it 7th or 8th?
I believe 8th, yeah.
Yeah, 8th overall of all the ultra runners. So that was pretty incredible.
That's
8
awesome,
out of
man.
Thank you.
300 that signed up, 140 that finished. So, and what I liked about the training program that we did, because you always go into these things, and I think just life in general, and thinking like, am I ready for this? Am I prepared for this? Did I train enough? Did I do enough? I mean, just insert anything in life, and you kind of have this imposter syndrome. And I had that too. And I was even telling Heather that. I was just like, did we train enough? Did we do the right things? And you just have to trust the process, I'd say. And I knew we did the right things when the next day I wasn't sore. Like, my legs were not sore. My ankle was kind of screwed, but my legs weren't sore. And that to me is like, okay, well, maybe I could even push harder than I did. And immediately I kept thinking about, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next race? So let's shift to that for a second here. Because I know you laugh at me all the time, and you're like you were telling Bruce, you're like, you really think we're not going to sign up for something again? Right. But so what do you think? What's the next thing we're going to do together?
I don't know.
Trifecta.
You know what? I was kind of excited to because I've told you this before. I'm not a runner, and I think John was hoping that I would start really liking running, and I still really don't. So I think to anyone out there, you could still do it and challenge yourself. But so I think I would kind of want to diversify my working out. So maybe not do so much running and maybe do something a little bit different. Again, kind of putting that experience into the overall health aspect of it. So I was thinking, being out in the mountains and stuff, I really like that. And maybe doing something like rock climbing and, doing some of that kind of stuff. So that would be a challenge, I think, for myself. And I think that would be great to even get our kids involved in something like that.
Yeah. Definitely. I can't stop thinking about the mountains too. It's just the mountains they're just awesome. And I think we found our happy place for sure. What about you, John?
So beautiful there too.
Yeah.
Just unreal.
Yeah.
We
lucked out with the weather too. I mean, they didn't have water obstacles this year, which was a positive. Although there's a point it was getting pretty hot. So I would have welcomed a water obstacle
little
at
swim,
one point for sure. So what's next for you?
So I have, in a few weeks, crazily, I have a 100K race. No obstacles, but just up in Minnesota. Very excited about that. Next year, I'd like to do a 100-mile race. Not sure where, but somewhere. And my ultimate goal, my dream race, is to do the Badwater 135, which sounds very daunting.
Crazy.
Do you want to explain
and
what that is?
Extremely crazy. So the Badwater 135 is a 135-mile race that is in Death Valley, California. Temperatures get up to 120, 130 degrees. So hot, in fact, that sometimes the rubber on the bottom of your shoes burns off. And it's not a trail race either. It's mostly on the road. So your joints don't get the forgiveness of running on grass and on dirt and things like that. But the Badwater, it's one that it's going to always be in the back of my mind of something that I want to do, and I know I can do, but it's
Are you thinking you're going to do this next year?
Definitely not next year, but I want to get a few 100-milers under my belt, and I want to be able to not necessarily live, but at least be able to train in that extreme heat for 3 or 4 months just to acclimate my body so I can be able to finish, because that's That's
Now,
what I want to do.
Do you have to get invited to that? Like, how do you?
Yeah, unfortunately, all these big races, because that's kind of one of the more famous ones in the U.S. So Badwater, Leadville, and Western
The Moab.
States,
What about the
and
Moab one?
Moab's too. Also, that's even more crazy. Moab's 240 miles. I don't know if I necessarily want to get into that kind of crazy training, but yeah, those are kind of the big three, and those ones you generally have to sit on a waiting list for a while. But yeah,
Sounds fun.
I know everyone is invited.
So how do you like Spartan versus, or like the OCR obstacle races versus just road running? Because I think we talked about it like that, and you like OCR because it breaks things up. Like, is it a different mindset shift?
It's it's a little bit of a different mindset. I used to do a bunch of just road races, 5, 10Ks, half marathons, things like that, and I kind of just got bored with it. And about 6 or 7 years ago, somebody introduced me to Spartan. I started with a sprint, not like everybody else in the group that started with a beast or an ultra. And I failed most of the obstacles, probably half of them at least. But I was hooked. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I get to run. I get to do all these cool things. Like, you get to take your shirt off and be like, a Spartan warrior kind of guy. And it was just a fun experience. And just the same thing. The community was awesome. Everyone was so positive. And it definitely is a whole different ballgame from just doing a regular race. Because like I said, you get to hike. You get to kind of take your time. You get to work on not only your endurance training, but you get to also get in the weight room and focus on your grip strength and your pull strength and all the other things that come along with training for a Spartan race. So I definitely like the diversity and the training involved with a Spartan race, because you get to do a whole bunch of different things through training. Whereas with just a typical road race, like, I'm kind of sad now because now I have to just focus on running for the next 5 or 6 months. So
It feels tough to me to go back to that.
it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to start training for the London Marathon next year with Cedric, which is obviously just a road race, but not just a road race. I mean, it's still a marathon, but still, it's interesting. I love the ultra aspect of it because I feel like you don't have to be super fast, which I'm not, to be good at it. You just have to power through and dig deep into your mindset.
And to emphasize what Bruce said earlier, like, anyone can do it. Like, we saw, all shapes, all sizes, all genders, all races, like, anyone that wanted to do it, anyone can do it, 100%.
Yeah.
Bruce, what's next for you? I know you want to jump back into the Spartan.
I'm definitely signing back up for the Lake Tahoe Spartan Ultra next year. But I think what I'd like to do is probably a trifecta. That's basically, what is that? That's the Ultra, that's the Beast, and then a Super, right? Or
You don't even have to do the Ultra. That's a Super, a Beast, and the Sprint.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of bring it all back is that, like I said, I have to work on my strength. And I think that if I could kind of pick these 3 races and just kind of keep them kind of, getting bigger and bigger and bigger each time, they might be kind of checkpoints to kind of just keep me focused on the strength training versus me just over-indexing and running, because that's just what I like to do. So definitely doing that. I just haven't signed up for anything just yet because I'm just waiting for the next year's enrollments to come through. And as soon as it does, though, I'm going to be there.
It's awesome. So what's the biggest takeaway then from the whole experience for you, Heather?
For me is, just take the leap, and, you're capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. Of course, I feel like with the fly. So yeah, challenge yourself, get outside your box, because I think it helps you grow.
Yeah. John?
100%. Get outside your comfort zone, because these are not easy, but anyone can go ahead and do this. Anyone can take that first step and start training for it, and you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. Absolutely.
I echo all that, obviously, but I just add that there's a discipline component that is so critical to doing something really hard. You know, like you can't just be like, oh, well, I've got this hard thing I just signed up for, and then just wait until 3 months before the thing.
Right.
You know, like you've got to like that day, you've got to start making some changes, and you can just, you know, make them small and incremental, and just keep doing it every day, and just keep adding, and you know, before you know it, you'll be crushing those obstacles and doing an ultra race and not even feeling it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can't like cram this in. I feel like our buddy Todd was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go power through 5 miles like 3 days before, and you know, he did great for as much as he trains, and I knew he would do well. But it's just kind of funny that the different mindset and the preparedness of each one of us, you know, and Darren I think did a fantastic job. Jacob. The whole crew, honestly, just exceeded every expectation I had. You know, I didn't know what to really expect, but I knew it was going to be really hard, and I knew it was going to be elevation that none of us faced before. But we just powered through it. But it's training. It is going back to what I said in the beginning of this, and that is training towards something, getting something on the calendar, and that way, like we were working on sometimes two times a day, which, you know, we have 2 kids at home, and we have Taya. We have a busy life, and we were able to make that happen. And we did that by waking up at 5:30 in the morning, doing more of a strength workout. And throughout the day, at some point, whether that be when the kids are at school or at another point, you would go for a run. I would typically go for a run like during my lunch break or after work. And we were able to get through it. So you can make time for your priorities and what you want to make time for. It doesn't have to interfere with your life in a sense that if you want to make this happen, you will figure out a way to make it happen. I think that's just a huge takeaway for anyone listening to this that wants to get back on their fitness journey or try something harder. Sign up for it. Sign up for it well in advance, because the last thing you want to do is be stressed out that you're not ready for something, and go after it. Just one foot in front of the other. I'm telling you right now, if we could do it here and our group can do it, anyone can do it.
I agree. 100%.
100%. Yeah. Boom.
Well, it was so great to spend this time with you guys today, and Heather being on the podcast for the first time. Well, I guess the one thing I didn't ask you though, because you made mention of Half Dome versus this, and I just want to get your closing thoughts on did Half Dome, maybe explain what that is quickly, and then secondly, did that prepare you for this, and would you recommend someone doing something like a hike like that in preparation for this?
Oh, I wouldn't recommend as a preparation to Spartan. It was something that I knew you really wanted to do. It was Half Dome, and we were going to be in Yosemite. So I'm not even sure how many miles it was.
It's about 13.
Yeah, 13 miles, but it took...
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was 18 miles. It took 13
miles,
hours.
And it took us about 12 to 13 hours.
Yeah.
But it's in Yosemite Valley. So it's like you go up to the valley, you're going and climbing all these granite staircases and all this crazy terrain. And like, legit, I had to bring hiking poles. If I did not have my trekking poles, it would have been really, really tough. So we were given the opportunity to do it through I forget what it was called, the lottery system. So we won the lottery system. It was one of the day ones. And I was like, okay, I got the congratulations. I guess we're doing this. So it was like the next day. So we went on and prepared. But I think the biggest takeaway between Half Dome and like Spartan is the fact that I prepared for Spartan with like training, and I didn't prepare for Half Dome, meaning you were already running and training with your running because you knew you were doing the ultra, which was a bigger distance. Right. I knew after our summer vacation that I would start training running. So I didn't really have my endurance built up. Granted, I worked out every day, but I didn't have that ultra endurance. So doing Half Dome and Spartan, I said to you the other day, I'm like, Half Dome was still, I thought was harder because I think it came from a spot that I wasn't physically prepared for it, and I didn't put in the work beforehand. So I think it was like in my brain harder because my body, like Bruce's body, like kind of gave out. My body started, like my legs were shaking and it was giving out, and I was like, that last like 2 miles to get to the car after the whole hike, I was like, are we there yet? And you kept telling me like, yeah, we're really, really close. And we were not close. So I
Got almost there, yeah.
Not almost
and
there.
I really didn't think I was going to make it to the car, but I did. So I've kind of got that in my memory banks of, going into the Spartan, I made sure I prepared, so I didn't feel that way again. So I think kind of to your biggest takeaway is you've got to have the due diligence and to be able to put the work in, and it makes things so much easier. So it's those little steps along the way that if you can put them in, everything just gets easier, and it's not as hard as you think it'll be.
Prepare in advance what you know in advance, right?
That's right.
Is there anything you guys would have done differently, training-wise, or wanted to do something differently?
Yeah, two things I would have done differently. One is start the ski hill earlier. So we're fortuitous enough to have a ski hill like 2 miles from our house, which is in this apartment complex, and is legit, like, I mean, not legit like anything like Tower, Colorado or anything like that, but it's a hill that they sell tickets to. So it's a great training hill. So doing that, that made the world of difference for me. Secondly, even though I did well on the obstacles, getting to that Spartan gym earlier, doing some more HIIT-based exercises, I think would have been good, like the DECA fit and things like that. I think for the next one, I'm going to do more of that to try and like either compete in the age group or
Absolutely.
really just trying to focus on improving my time, because I know when I finished, even, and I was probably being more careful with my foot, but I know I could have probably done more, and I could have done a little bit faster. So I just think about that.
Okay.
What about
I would
you?
just say ditto, exactly that. Like the hills were great. I wish I would have done a little bit more of that. And then definitely try not the obstacles, because I think this being our first Spartan, I think we did really well. And I'm proud of myself for the ones that I was able to accomplish, and the ones that I failed, I felt like I could get there. I could get them finished, if I practiced a little bit more. So,
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, hitting those OCR gyms more often next time. And the only other thing I think would just nutrition. I'm just really going to start thinking about that a little bit more diligently, instead of just trying to always hit your macros. And I just really want to think about maybe like Jon, you're all plant-based, and I think that there's something to that, to maybe start, kind of a couple days a week, at least starting there and just seeing, how you feel with different things along the way. So that, because we were watching videos of some of the elite Spartan finishers, the women group, and they didn't have any of those things. I had this pack filled with everything. They're doing it with like a gel pack and a water. So I think there's ways to, kind of figure this out too. So I want to explore that too next time.
Yeah, they were doing the 13 miles, albeit very quickly and fast, and we were doing 31. So
Right.
it's a little bit different. You had to prepare a little bit differently for it, and definitely didn't want to get fatigued. The thing I was surprised on is how much I didn't eat. Like I didn't need a lot of fuel at all. I couldn't really eat even a sandwich during the transition period. I had the spring like applesauce
Spring
things,
Energy,
and those
yeah.
were a lifesaver for me because they weren't like gooey or anything like that. It was like almost like baby food in a way.
Yep.
And I thought that was awesome. But beyond that, it wasn't. To make sure you're hydrated, electrolytes, salt tablets, like all that stuff, I was good. I hit so much salt that I was like, am I going to OD on salt? But at the end of the day, like I didn't sweat out any salt, which I normally do. So I think I was doing the right things, even though it felt like a lot. So cool. Well, thanks again for being here. It's so great to have you guys and our fellow Spartan racers, Jacob, Todd, Micah, Darren. Who else?
don't forget
Ryan,
Christy.
Ryan and Christy. Yeah, I'm just trying to think
Yeah,
everyone who's at our
It
house.
was a very
Ian
big
and Todd.
group.
Yeah, it's a very big.
Yeah, I was just visualizing who's at our house. But yeah, Ryan and Christy, and thanks Ryan for getting us into this, and Christy as well. So, all right, well, that's a wrap. Thanks again for being here, and thank you for listening. Let me know your thoughts on this podcast, and if you have any questions about Spartan or anything else, you probably want to ask Jon because he's more the expert. See you next time.